I honestly, it's very hard for me to concentrate on the show right now. I'm so dialed into this hockey game.
Well, let's talk about the obvious big news out
I
of
like
Edmonton.
I like Brownie. 40 seconds left. Thank you.
Yeah, we're a little bit behind Brownie. Sorry, buddy.
Everyone comment how much time's left in the Finland game.
10.
All right, we're going to overtime for the second straight game in these quarterfinals.
Good. This is how it should be. It should be very evenly matched all the way through, I think.
Yeah. So while this game's in break, the Edmonton Oilers doing just a sneaky move. Oh, right before the third period of Canada's game, and everyone's focusing on that. Paul Coffey's coming back. Who said that? Did someone do? Oh yeah, Paul. Yeah, we said Paul Coffey's coming back. What do you make of this? So I'll let you go first, and because I might have a long-winded take on this.
I think it was a necessary move in the sense of the Oilers needed more experience on the bench. And I think taking a little bit of responsibility away from Mark Stewart is a good thing. By experience, obviously, Coffey has been with the team the last couple of years, but also he's a Hall of Fame defenseman and clearly had a positive impact on the team. I am interested in finding out who made this decision, which will be a big layer in all of this. But there's a quote there from Chris Knobloch. I've been in regular contact with Paul since last summer and believe we will benefit as a team and as a staff from his return at this time. We will see. We obviously saw a more positive impact on the roster, I would think, in the whole with Coffey on the bench. What do you think?
We will never know. But who made this call? Are we taking Chris Knobloch at his word when he says he's been in regular contact with Paul and, this was a decision that they both agreed on? Like, if that truly is the case, and I don't want to go full tinfoil hat theory on everybody on this either, but there were reports that the split, like the two of them weren't on the same page towards the end of last year. I've heard stuff about, Paul Coffey was maybe pushing the team a little bit hard to keep practicing throughout the end of that cup final. And maybe that's why the Edmonton Oilers felt like they ran out of gas. I've heard some things that sometimes Paul Coffey just kind of does the whole, I know what it takes to win thing instead of actually like presenting reasons for some of his decisions. So like I heard that there was some rifts between the two of them. Now, does time heal all wounds? Do they sit here and go, 50 some odd games into the season and say, you know what, we kind of miss having his expertise around the bench? Like, yeah, maybe. Is there a chance that when they had the split in the summer and they agreed he wasn't coming back, maybe there was something where it's like Paul Coffey's like, I don't want the grind of being an NHL head coach. I've made my millions. I've won my Stanley Cups. He obviously has a passion for the Oilers and a passion for the game, but he might have just kind of said like, you know what? I don't want to commit to a full year. Let's see how the season goes. And if you guys want to talk, after the Olympic break, maybe I'd come back and give you another 3-4 sort of hard months here. That's a possibility. That is like a real possibility, and it's probably the most likely of all of the possibilities, Liam. But there is just that little part of me that goes, the guy who we know has the ear of ownership, the guy who, when he stepped off the bench, went back to being a special advisor to the owner. Now things aren't going well. Things aren't going well defensively, and we're circling back to this conversation of like, who's making the call? Is it Daryl Cates saying, hey, things aren't going well, I'm pissed off, Paul, get back in there and find out what's wrong in this room? Because, like, again, I don't think that's the most likely scenario. It's a little tinfoil hat conspiracy, but it's kind of hard to not connect some dots here and say, who is truly the one making this decision?
Mm-hmm. I think just strictly from like on the bench stuff, I think it's good to have a little bit of sandpaper as well from your coaching staff and even your players too. Like obviously we don't know a lot about Mark Stewart and it's Paul McFarland, right? Whatever his name is, like, but they're relatively new to the whole NHL coaching staff idea. So I think having Coffey there, just maybe pushing back on a few ideas can be a good thing too. And I think challenging people isn't always as negative as it can come across sometimes. So I'm happy that he's back, to be honest. I think just we saw positive from when he was on the bench, and I think this team needs a boost. We went through the fan poll yesterday, and people are not satisfied with Chris Knobloch and the whole staff in general, and it's time for a change. And they made a change. We'll see if it works. It needs to work. Let's put it that way. There's one decision here, and it has to be one answer, and it has to be yes, this worked.
Is the reason why the blue line struggled, is it tactically? I don't know. Like Jake Wallman's hurt, wasn't at 100% for a while, missed a bunch of time, has come back and has looked really, really slow. You need Jake Wallman up to 100% healthy. Matthias Ekholm's been fine this year. Evan Bouchard's been obviously really good the last couple of months. Like, is Paul Coffey showing up going to make Darnell Nurse magically play better? Like, I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that just Paul Coffey's presence and things that he says is magically some sort of magic elixir for all these issues that they're having. Like, maybe he'll have an impact on the way they defend as a 5-man unit, but again, like, you would think that they would all know how to defend that way. If it was Paul Coffey telling them to do it in the playoffs, they should all remember that now. It's not like Paul Coffey goes away and they all look at each other going like, what were we supposed to do again? Who am I supposed to cover? Where? What zone defense? The hell's that?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't change so drastically. I just think, just look at who Mark Stewart and Paul Coffey are. Mark Stewart was not a puck-moving defenseman. He was your stay-at-home, meat and potatoes kind of guy, and I don't think he's turned the Oilers into that by any means. I think that would be very silly in the modern game to ask players to become that. But I think maybe Coffey he just sees the game differently, right? And maybe he can make changes a bit better on the fly in the game. Maybe he just sees what the certain moments in the games, like guys come to the bench like, hey, like this guy's getting to the middle, this guy's coming across here. Defensively, and you have a bit more time. I don't know exactly what it could be. I just think just the new face is just good. And it's as simple as that for me. I just think the voice of Coffey, someone who they've relied on the last couple of years and done well for them. I think it'll just work. And I think maybe he's also a little bit harder on them if they're making bad plays. Like Jake Wallman, it's just a recency bias thing, but he forgot how to line change. All of a sudden, he forgot how to line change. Do you think he's coming back he's not doing that twice if Paul Coffey's on the bench? Because I think Paul Coffey's going to sit there and be like, that is dumb. Like, don't do that shit. So I just think maybe stuff like that, it could be the change in all of this.
I would hope he knows not to do that just because he's Jake Wallman and he's made it to the NHL, right? Like, that's my only counterpoint to this is like some of the shit that's going wrong here is so painful to watch that it's like, I struggle being like, you're NHL defenseman, and because Paul Coffey's not on the bench, like, you're magically going to become better at your jobs. Like, tactically, is there something they're doing differently? Like, I don't know. Again, this is a guy who was on the bench the last 2 seasons here, last year and a half, whatever it is. Like, it's not like whatever wisdom he gave them over those 18 months, over those 150 some odd games or however long it was. It's not like it just totally evaporates the second they say, hey, he's not on the bench anymore, which makes me wonder about Mark Stewart's future here. Like, this is sending a message to somebody. And again, if this is not Chris Knobloch's decision, and we speculated about this yesterday on Oilers Nation Radio, if this is not Chris Knobloch's decision, and this is either management or ownership saying you are going to take Paul Coffey back on the bench and we are righting this wrong, then Chris Knobloch should be sitting there and going, why don't you guys trust me to run my own bench right now? Like, what's going on here? If it's Chris Knobloch's decision, then I think Mark Stewart should be sitting there and going like, why aren't you just firing me? If you think I'm so bad at running the blue line that I need the Paul Coffey presence and I need him to come correct everything I'm doing, like, that was a storyline we talked about this year. Is like, we were both excited, Liam, for how this blue line could play and approach the game under Mark Stewart, who's a little bit younger, a lot less removed from his playing days than Paul Coffey was. I was sitting here being like, I'm curious how he's going to run the blue line now that he has full control. The fact you're bringing back Paul Coffey is presumably going to take away some control and some ownership of this blue line from Mark Stewart. He's got to be sitting there being like, what the fuck? Why are you guys still have me here then?
I think Mark Stewart should be more worried about doing better at his job than worrying about why did they do this. Like, they did this because you've done a bad job.
That's what I mean, though. Yeah.
But like, I don't think he should be sat there playing like he did the job. He did a bad job of doing it. And I think that someone put it in the chat, scroll by, it's like, it's not necessarily the X's and O's that Coffey brings, but just like his presence, I do think matters. And I think stuff like that is impactful on the team. And I think just Mark Stewart isn't working. And if he just needs to be a penalty kill guy, then he needs to focus on that. The penalty kill wasn't as bad as it ended up being these past couple of weeks. Like, it was relatively like top half of the season, most of the year. And absolutely fell off a cliff. But the Oilers have let in a ton of goals this season. That's not obviously just on the defense, but it's just based off the structure of it, and the defensemen are the last line of defense. And he's done a bad job. There's no two ways around it. And the Oilers were forced into this decision, whoever's decision it was, based off the performance of their defensive coach.
Brownie is in and says, I'd feel better if they were bringing in someone new who has a reputation like Coffey, new blood that's also respected by the players. I mean, is that out there? I think that's probably my first question, and we don't know. Oil Tang says, I bet leadership asked for it. Someone else also kind of dropped in that sentiment earlier, being, I bet you the players demanded that Paul Coffey comes back, which maybe leans more to the theory that Paul Coffey himself at the end of last season was like, hey, I'm not doing the 82 game grind again. Again, he had to be reportedly convinced to come back and join the Oilers bench the first time. Never mind the fact he stuck around for 18 months. Like, he didn't want to do it to begin with when they brought him in. So maybe he was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not traveling. I'm good. Maybe this is just him. Maybe this was a part of the plan to some extent all along, that they're going to give Mark Stewart a chance to do things, but they know that when the games get big and more meaningful, they want Paul Coffey and his sort of experience back on that bench. Like, maybe Knockout Panda. Yeah, I think it would be hard to make big coaching changes in season. I'm honestly, I think my last sort of big take here is, again, I'll judge it on the results. It's a results-driven business, and I don't mean that to be wishy-washy and sit on the fence. I think my gut instinct is I don't know how much this is going to do, but if it's a spark, I'm going to trust that the guys in the room and the people making the decisions recognize or know that this is going to be something that the group will respect and respond to. My second thing is just that I think Mark Stewart might just lose his job. Maybe tomorrow it'll be like Mark Stewart is relieved of his duties. You'd think it would have came in time with the announcement of Paul Coffey, so maybe I'm totally off base there, but like, I am just honestly surprised that Mark Stewart hasn't been relieved of his duties yet, if this is the way they're going with the decisions.
I'm curious to see what happens with him too, but also I do believe this team, this coaching staff and management, whoever else, I think this decision was made collectively. I think the organization should be in sync of where they're all at the moment. And I'll lean on the positive and optimistic side that this was like a team decision. Mark Stewart, I would encourage him to learn. You know what I mean? Like, maybe take in a little bit more. And I'm not saying he didn't the past couple of years, but like, really take these next couple of months to like absorb what you can from Paul Coffey. I don't think he necessarily 100% needs to lose his job, but he needs to show signs of improvement. And the penalty kill, if that's his only responsibility, or I think he's also like a face-off coach or something weird like that too. Figure it out.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you enjoyed today's episode of Oilers Nation Every Day, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube to not miss any of our content. We got you covered, from interviews, insight, analysis, everything you need to stay up to date on everything around the team. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video.